Dino, welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me.
No, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited. And before we get started, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Rachel Green for getting us connected. Rachel was a guest on an earlier episode, and she's great, and she spoke highly of you. How did you guys meet?
I think that we met at marketing networking event or some marketing event in Santa Monica. I think she was promoting one of the distilleries that she worked with. I think it was from Kentucky or North Carolina. And immediately there was a bourbon bottle over there, so I had to check it out. And immediately I was like, oh, she knows her stuff. And we started talking and continued from there. And then when she got back to North Carolina, we continued being in touch. She's very special, super smart, and she's great at connecting people. She has that right je ne sais quoi. She connected me with John Aspie, and it was like a match made in heaven. We've never physically met, but we're like friends, and we think alike, and we have our own. On my podcast, once a week, we have John and I. We have a special episode when we talk about tech and marketing and business and all of that. So all of that is because of Rachel.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I agree. She's a great connector, and she does really know her stuff. And actually, she connected me to John as well. I had a chance to sit down with him, and that was a really great conversation too. And so thank you so much, Rachel, if you're out there listening. And we'll be sure to link to your Instagram account in the show notes. And so I was trying to think of a fun way to get this interview underway. And as we were scheduling, I texted you at one point, and you said that you had really bad reception because you were driving cattle in the middle of nowhere. And so, how about we start there? Because that sounds more interesting than my typical weekend.
Yeah, I did that for about 4 days. I remember when I told that to John, he was like, Dino, you're an international man of mystery. Because I do so many different things. But yeah, I was actually driving cattle with an interesting family in the northern side of the coast here in California. Of course, not on the coast. It's a huge ranch, and it's the real deal. I mean, you actually need to find the cattle and drive it, and then sort it, and then sell it. Those cows were sold to Nebraska, and I learned a lot. Not only that, I really like to sort cattle, and that you know, as much as I love riding horses, um, it's really, I changed horses after the first day. I had a great horse, but his personality was too much like mine. And it was great to understand why sometimes people are like, God damn it, Dino. Like, he just wanted to ride, fast. And you can't, you're in a group. You can't do whatever you want. And then after that, I changed to an amazing horse. And I like sorting cattle much more. And I learned two really cool things, because when you're with real cowboys, um, day and night, sleeping and eating in a tent. Uh, so first, the drive. They have amazing drive. They're like skateboarders in a way. You know, a skateboarder will try to do a trick. Uh, he will fall, try again, fall, try again, fall, try again. It doesn't matter how many times until it will work. They're doing the same thing. If like roping is not easy, and I don't know why, but maybe because we're just used to sitting in front of a computer all day. The first thing that not only me, but all of our guys, so you're trying to rope and it's hard, and you need to learn a specific technique, how to use the rope, what hand, the fingers, when. So you break and you're like, after a few tries, you're like, and you go and you sit somewhere and drink a beer or whatever. And then you see them and it's like, there's no, until it will be perfect, they will not stop until what they're trying to do with the rope is done as it should be.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden you see, okay, it just grows on you. And so you wake up in the morning and you start roping again and again and again and again and again. And all of a sudden, oh, it works. And then you get better at it. So the drive is amazing. And the second thing is, if you want to get to the top of the mountain, it's going to be a bumpy ride. You can, so we were driving about 50 heads, big cows. I mean, there was lots of rain in California. There was COVID. So all the cows are really, really fat and big right now, more than usual. So you're on a horse and you're driving them, and there's kind of a road that will just go past the mountain, and you will get to the point that you need to the corral, or you can go very steep on the mountain, and when there's no road, you will get to the corral much faster. You know, it's going to be harder, but you're going to get to your goal much, much faster. And to stop cows from going where they want to go and push them to go on a very, very steep mountain, 50 cows, when I'm there on the middle of the road with my horse, telling them to go up, and you're like, I don't think they'll do that. And then you just do it, and it's amazing.
It sounds amazing, and I'm trying to stay up with the terms that you're using. But when I hear driving cattle, I think I understand that you're trying to get a group of cattle from point A to point B. When you talked about sorting cattle, what is meant by that?
Okay, so you got all the cattle in the corral. They're gated. You're supposed to bring cow X to the weight, okay, to weight them, or to the car, okay? But they're all together and they want to be together. Herds want to be together.
Sure.
It's going to be very hard for you while you're sitting on a horse in the middle of all the cows to pick this specific one and move her to where you want.
Got it.
They're very frightening. They're very frightened, and they don't really think. They're just, I'm gonna just run away. And you're on a horse, and it's tons of action, and you have to think and look and manage the horse and manage all the cows and have only one cow and not the other cows. And I can do that all day.
That is wild. That is such a unique experience. I'm so glad that I'm glad that you couldn't get good reception, because I'm glad that you texted me about it. And that was really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. So as the international man of mystery, as John said, maybe just walk me through your career up to this point. I know that at this point you're working in branding consulting. It looks like for cannabis specifically. How did you get to branding, marketing, and in this kind of unique industry?
Well, I've been in marketing for more than 20 years, and I started with PR. I did PR for mainly models and musicians and artists. And then I started with fashion. I did PR for Levi's, and then I continued and I did more merchandising for NTV Europe. I did pretty much everything in marketing. And this whole concept of marketing was different 20 years ago, before there was internet, cellular, high-speed internet, mobile texts and all that. So everything changed. The platforms changed, technology changed, society changed, but marketing didn't change. Marketing is about people. Now, with time, because I did marketing, and then I decided to teach myself design. So I did design and fashion design and graphic design. I did some artworks for National Geographic. So I started doing logos and branding and websites design. And because I had experience in marketing, it was easier for me to really create the right logo, really create the right art to convey something. And about 2 years ago, I was in London, and I sat with a friend. It was like 10:30 a.m. We were at the bar. Yeah, in London, 10:30, you're already drinking at the bar. And, we started talking, and the alcohol and another drink and another drink. And then we started talking about work and marketing. And he's a very successful designer and architect. And he really understands marketing and branding from the corporate design point of view. So both of us look at branding and design and marketing in the higher level. For him, for instance, if you need to design a shop or an office can be like the most boring thing in the world. But
Sure, and I know that from experience.
yeah, and for him, he knows that when he needs to create an office or a shop for a company X that has some kind of a brand, he's not designing for walls. He's designing a feeling, an environment. And that's how you really need to look at marketing and branding. That's why I call myself a brand consultant, not branding consultant. Branding is the execution of the brand. Branding is actually designing. I'm a great designer, but there are better designers than me. On the other hand, there are not many strategists that understand really, really fast what needs to be the brand. What is the brand? How are we going to convey that?
Sure. So and forgive me for just not knowing more about these topics, but that's part of the reason why I wanted to talk to you about it. So, would you
Sure.
consider branding to be like a subcategory of marketing, or are the terms are they different, or help me understand kind of what those terms mean and how they might be different?
Great, great question. Let's say that marketing is what you say about yourself, and branding is what people say about you.
That's a really good
Marketing,
way to put it.
yeah, marketing is at the top, and then there are things that create marketing. For instance, if you will ask a 20-something-year-old what is advertising, the, the, the word advertising doesn't exist anymore. For them, an ad campaign on Google is a marketing campaign, is digital marketing. For us, older people, it's an ad campaign, it's advertising. But things change, wording change, society change, everything changes. So I don't care how you call it. The idea with building a brand is to create a feeling, to create a thought in a specific target market's gut or heart or brain. You want specific people to think or feel something specific about your product or service. That's building a brand. That feeling is the brand. The brand is not the name of the product or the name of your company, even though we use it like that. The brand is that feeling. When you see Nike's logo, you have a feeling. I don't care what the feeling is, but you have a feeling. Usually you have the same feeling no matter where you are in the world, what language you talk, what color is your skin. You have a specific feeling, gut feeling, something in your head. That's Nike's brand. When you see Lady Gaga, when someone says Lady Gaga, you have immediate thing in your mind. That's Lady Gaga's brand. When you see me, you know my brand. You know that I will never be on trend, for instance. That's my brand.
That's really interesting. You mentioned the word specificity a lot. I feel like when you were talking about the brand and the target markets, I think that's really helpful because I don't know. I feel like a common mistake in this space might be to try to target too many people or try to just say, "Oh, I'm for the everyman. I'm for." Yeah, it
Yeah,
seems to me that can be a common mistake.
that's a common mistake. You're totally right on that. And listen, after more than 20 years of doing marketing and working with entrepreneurs, big brands, like really big brands, small companies, moms and pops, in 3 different continents, if there's something clear, is that most businesses, business owners, business managers are doing the same mistakes. And that's because most of them look at marketing the same way, while only a few look at the whole thing totally different. And that's why they have been with us for so long. That's why they're so successful. So you need to learn from the most successful ones, not from your friends or some story that you hear. So many things that they understand branding and marketing because it sounds like it's sexy and it's fun and it's easy. And it's just like everyone says, oh, I'm great at design. Like, yeah, I'm a great interior design. If I'll buy a house, I will design it. Well, here's the money. Buy a house. I want to see your design. It will be crappy. Take a designer. The amount of money and mistakes that you're going to do when you will design your own space. And again, there's some people that really have it, even though they're not designers. But I'm talking about most people. They are going to make so many mistakes. It's not going to look good. They're going to spend much more than their budget. And if you will actually check with real estate people, you will see that what I say is true. And they've seen it again and again and again and again.
It's funny. My
So,
my wife's actually she's a residential realtor, and yeah, she's seen some pretty interesting stuff when she's shown houses. But yeah, and her team has that. They actually have somebody who helps with like staging and stuff
staging,
like that, who's a professional, and she does great work. But yeah, it is. You mentioned earlier. I mean, when it comes to things like marketing and design, they're kind of fun sounding things, and there's this natural inclination to just automatically assume that you could be pretty good at it if you just try, and so,
Yeah.
or you could just, I can see, it can be very tempting to want to do it yourself. So, but it sounds like it usually pays to get a professional to help you out.
Yeah, and that's why most businesses fail in the first 3 to 5 years. It's just because they are doing the same mistakes. Now, I've done tons of mistakes. I'm doing mistakes. I try not to, but I do them. I try to learn from them and not do it again and repeat them. Um, One of them is, for instance, to know that you can't do everything. I mean, even if you can, you shouldn't in your business. You should outsource that, take this expert to do that. For me, it was really hard, but it was one of the smartest things to do. You know what? I can create all those social media posts. I can do it. I can do it pretty well. It takes so much time. And instead of working on my business, I found myself creating social media instead of taking someone who's doing social media to do my social media. And then in that time, that as if I'm conserving money by doing it myself instead of paying someone. But if you're doing it yourself, you are not creating money, and that's exactly, to your point, what you said before, that usually people in marketing say, or business people or business owners or entrepreneurs uh, say, I'm going to try and get everyone, or as many as I can. I'm for everyone. Everyone can use my product. I was in a meeting in the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. I'm a member, and we met a few restaurants and stuff. And we asked them, okay, so who's your target customer? So one pizzeria owner said, everyone who's hungry. Told him, okay, good luck. I mean, I'm sure you'll sell pizzas, but you can sell so much more if you will focus and target a specific segment. So,
For sure. And you mentioned too, the platforms have evolved so much to where we have access to a much wider ocean of fish in some ways. And so I feel like you can get specific, I feel like, because I feel like one reason why people might be hesitant about getting specific is like, well, I want to drive sales. I want to have, higher sales volume. So more people means more sales volume. But I think that, to your point, if you get more specific, there's plenty of people out there that would fit in that category that you're trying to target. I think that makes a lot of sense.
more people does not equal more sales. And everyone with an e-commerce website or an online shop that has tons of traffic but no sales know what I'm talking about. It's not how much traffic is, who is in that traffic.
For sure.
And I can't show you right now because we're not dead, and I didn't think that I will need to show you those screen prints. But for instance, I worked with a fintech company. I helped them secure $14 million in investment. And they had nice traffic. And you will see in that print screen how the traffic went down a little bit, but all the other metrics went up. People spent so much more, spent more time, came back more. So less traffic, but more of the right traffic.
That sounds like exactly what you want. That's awesome. I One thing that I noticed, it seems like some of your more recent content. Well, you've got a podcast, and you mentioned the content that you're putting out there on social media. It looks like it's some of the recent episodes be geared towards cannabis marketing, and that's an interesting industry that I wanted to explore a little bit. It's one that I think has kind of a reputation for being a bit crowded as of late, perhaps in the past few years. What are your thoughts on that, and how do companies differentiate in such a crowded industry?
Yeah, crowded is the understatement of the year, I would say. Oversaturated, maybe. Um, Fierce competition. So yeah, I've been in branding. I've been in cannabis for about 6 years. Um, like 10 years ago, oh, more. Wow, about 18 years ago, I launched OCB, the rolling paper, the first luxury French luxury rolling paper. They were the first to be actually luxurious, different than all the other rolling papers. And since then, I didn't do anything until about 6 years here in California. Um, and there are tons of great people in the cannabis industry, very entrepreneurial, very smart. They know their shit very, very well. Um, Tons of them young. So obviously they think they know marketing, they think they know branding, they think they know digital marketing, but then they see that they don't. And one of the things is differentiation, because differentiation and focus can really help you with marketing and with sales. You need to create that tribe. So if everyone's trying to sell the same thing, how can you differentiate yourself? Because why is a huge question. Why should I buy you? Why should I use your services if there are so many that sell the same thing? You can see that the successful cannabis brands are actually those who have brands. They have a very unique, specific persona. They have a very specific value. They are targeted at very specific clientele. They know that everyone can use that CBD. Everyone with pain can take this edible. Everyone that want to get high can buy this great vape or smoke a joint or whatever. So why this company and not the other? That's where building the brand and building the brand personality comes to the rescue. And you can see with many websites that in the cannabis industry that they all say the same thing. Um, the best nugs, the best vape, the best, or we're all about sustainability, or we're always clean. We have the cleanest dab. But this one said that he has the cleanest, and this one too. So you need to differentiate yourself either by the product or by the personality of the brand or by the people that you target.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the personality of the brand, because again, this is a unique industry. It's got a number of challenges, not the least of which that it's a regulated drug, and it's taboo in some ways in certain circles. And so, one thing I've always kind of been curious about is, like, if you imagine kind of the persona that people typically associate with cannabis, how much should that fit into the brand, in terms of, I guess I'm just thinking, like, from an investor perspective, like, do you wear ties to those meetings or do you not? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just trying to think of
Not really.
yeah. Yeah, sorry. I'm doing a bad job of posing the question. I guess my question is, um, you know, when you think about your average person, I mean, I think about the people that I went to school with, the people who smoked.
Yeah.
A lot of them they were really smart and really driven in a lot of ways. But they also, there was a stereotype of just wanting to be relaxed and just not particularly driven. So I guess does that have to be part of the brand, or is that
Well, that
something?
depends. It's a great question. It's a great question. And it's really important that you say that and you bring it up, because the fact that here in California, let's say, everyone understand, what this culture and products are all about. In the rest of the world, it's not really like that. So the first distinguish I would say is between recreational and medical. Recreational is very specific, and that's for people who want to get high for specific reasons that are not medical. The medical, which, by the way, as it's not the same thing, okay? It's not the same strains, even. This one has more of CBD, this one has more THC. The medical doesn't have THC. Well, it has, but I don't want to get into that. So it all depends on the alignment between your brand and your target audience. So if your target audience is super stoners, your brand should be super stoner. So when you build your brand persona, think, okay, so if first this is like a super stoner, so how does it get stoned? Does he use bong or dab? And if he use X, Y, or Z, is he like the more lavish one, or he doesn't really care? Does he spend a lot of money on getting stoned or not? That's the culture. What social media he follows, what kind of clothing he wears, because you can have two stoners. One will be more in hip hop, one will be a cholo or into heavy metal. They're not the same, and they don't want the same, you know? So that's how you differentiate yourself, and everything is about alignment. And this helps you to create the right ROI, return on investment, on your marketing and advertising, because you know that you put money to get the hip hop stoner. So you will not put money on heavy metal magazines. You will use your money on ads on hip hop magazines. You will go to an influencer who listens to hip hop. So the ROI on every marketing dollar will be better. You will see more sales. Now, this is something really important, and we see it a lot in the cannabis industry. The owner or the producer of the product, they want to have X as their buyer's persona, as their targeting customer. Let's say 90s hip hop kind of guys. But then when we run marketing campaigns, the data show us that no, it's actually baby boomers from Oklahoma mainly. So you can either say, okay, I'm going to go with those who actually buy, or I can be rigid and say, no, but I want hip hop because I like hip hop. Yeah, but hip hop don't buy your stuff. Baby boomers buy your stuff. So find how you're going to align and talk and tell a story, your brand story, that will retain those to buy again and again and again, and of course, grow that specific segment.
Thank you so much for walking through those examples. I found those to be really helpful. And I think that they kind of illustrate how nuanced your target market actually is. I mean, you know, when I don't know, going into this question, I would have thought of, you know, stoners, as you put it, as one category, and but then as you were walking through, you know, folks who might spend a little bit more money on, you know, paraphernalia and things like that, I started to like recognize in my kind of Rolodex of friends, that there's lots of nuance to it, and people do it for different reasons, and so that was really helpful. Thank you for walking through that.
Sure thing.
When we're talking about marketing, uh, you mentioned on our when we had kind of a kickoff call a few weeks ago, we talked about how when you're working with your clients, they have different goals. Sometimes your clients will want to drive sales. Other times it'll be like that client you mentioned earlier, where you're trying to drive investor interest. And I was curious, are those strategies the same, or are they different in some way? Driving sales versus driving investor interest.
Well, what I use a strategy that I call brand focused marketing. That means that everything starts with the brand. Everything is about creating that brand. And if you will create a specific brand in the right way, you will reach whatever goal it is. The client that wanted investors got the investors, got the phone calls from investors. And again, we're talking about $14 million because we created a brand in a very specific industry. It's a very specific niche. And all of a sudden they start to hear from here and from there, and read here and read there, and Google, and that came up, and this came up, and they saw it in this event, and from this guy and from that guy, creating a brand in different tactics. Another company that wants to drive more sales to their website, again, I have to create a specific brand. I have to see who are the people that will buy it. How do I get to them? What they want to hear, what they want to see, what they want to consume, how they want to consume it. So the strategy in its core is the same strategy. The tactics can be different.
Sure. And when we talk about strategy and tactics, one thing, I listened to another podcast where you were interviewed, and you mentioned three critical questions that you should ask yourself when branding. Um, what am I selling? Who do I sell it to? And why should they buy? And, you know, I mentioned that I talked to John. He and I had an interview just last week, and he was talking about kind of asking why, to clients. And I mentioned, I was like, you know, even just hearing those questions, people can get defensive about stuff like that. People can, you know, it can be hard to articulate the answers to those questions. And so, how do you help clients find the answers to what am I selling, who do I sell it to, and why should they buy?
Well, first of all, I have a specific session that I call brand clarity and discovery session. And that's when we find this. Well, that's when we answer those questions. And that's one of the first things that I do with every client. Because it's hard, I actually wrote a guide to that. Because all those questions starts with W, I call it the W system. If you want, we can set a link for your people to actually
Sure, absolutely.
go and download it, go and get it. So it's who is the brand, who you're selling to, what is it that you actually sell, and why should they buy. The why that John talks about as an entrepreneur and the why that I'm talking about are pretty much the same. there has to be a reason why. Now let's go a step back. Why is there a reason why? Why this word starts to be so important all of a sudden? Back in the days, there was not much of the same. Okay? There was one Levi's. There was Coca-Cola and Pepsi. That's it. There were no mineral water and Fiji water and ABC water and whatever. There was no Diesel and Levi's and American Apparel and American Eagle and all that. Once there's so much of the same, the question is, why should I buy you and not the competition? That's what people think when they buy. We don't buy because we need anymore. We buy because we can. We can buy whatever we want. We buy everything on this little with our thumb. You don't need to go anywhere and buy, you know. So the question is why? In a research from late 2018, they found out that 67% of the people who has a relationship with a brand say that the relationship is based on shared values they have with the brand, not about anything else. Because it's never about the product. About the product and the price, it's commodities. When it's values and why, how does it make me feel? What people think about me when they see me with that? Think about it. iPhone has white earpods. Do you think it's just a coincidence? They thought, ooh, I love white, so I will make them white. You see those, because they're white, you see them from afar. Everyone has black or red or stuff like that. Mainly when they started, it was mainly black. All of a sudden, everyone, when you walk in the street with these iPhone earpods, everyone knows that you have an iPhone. Everybody knows that you invest in design, that you invest money in your gadgets. So you want to feel in a specific way. That's why you buy an iPhone. That's why you stand outside of an Apple store all day when they're launching a new one.
Yeah, and and now that you're mentioning it, I'm just thinking about how when all of this kind of COVID-19 stuff kind of went down, one of the first things that I noticed when everybody was working from home is, you would even see like local news reporters, and they got AirPods in, and it was one of the first things that I noticed. I was like, oh yeah, this is probably pretty good marketing for Apple in some ways. But another thing that I want to talk about is like, I mean, I have
You
AirPods.
want to hear something really cool about Apple?
Sure.
Just because we were like, hey, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's a cool example. So, Apple, they think about everything, every little thing. Okay. If it's not on brand, it's not happening. They spent, I think, a year just to figure out the iPhone box. And if you remember, if you have a box, you'll see that there's some kind of a specific timing opening the box. It takes a specific time. I think it takes 5 seconds. And there's a way to do that when you do packaging and design packaging. There's some kind of a vacuum when you open it. And they checked and they saw that 7 seconds is too late. On the other hand, when it takes just 3 seconds, it's just, boom, there's no novelty in it. There's no surprise in it because you just open it. So they worked a long time for it to be this specific way of opening.
I literally just got a new iPhone today. My old iPhone was on its last leg, and I got what you're just talking about. I experienced it like 2 hours ago, and yeah, when you open the box, it's like there's like a little air pocket or
Yeah.
something, and it slowly opens, and then it just says, designed in California, and then you just take it and it's that. But one thing that I want to point out too, because that is fascinating. And so I'm totally on board with investing in marketing, investing in design. But another thing that's important is that the AirPods are good. They function very well. I have other
Yeah.
like I have another brand of kind of an off brand that I used to wear just when I was working out, and they're not quite as good. They're not quite as comfortable. They're a little bit more spotty in terms of connection. And one thing that I heard you mention was that the brand has to deliver on the promise. And
Yeah.
so one of my questions is like, is it ever too early to focus on marketing or branding? How much time should one spend designing a product or honing a craft before they decide to shift their focus to branding?
Well, the best way is to start with branding, is to start branding really, really fast before, when you're just working on it, when you're just starting with your startup, when you're writing the code.
Sure.
Um, I had a lecture in this startup hub. They're all like very young 20 something kids. I talk, they all write on their laptops, continue, listening and writing codes and all that. Really great environment. And if you will know what brand and who you're targeting, it will be much easier for you to design the right product and create the right atmosphere. Even if you're designing an app or a game, or a world, or whatever it is, and you have to deliver, for instance, and you don't always deliver, and brands, they're like people. We talked about personas. They change and they evolve, just like a musician. The first album, they write it when they're 16 and they're like, and then when they're 30, the album is pretty different, but it grew with their people, or they decide that they will always, be for the teenagers. It all depends what you're trying to do, and what you feel comfortable with, and what brings you the most value. Value can be either sales, recognition, tickets. I don't know.
I think that's really I find that to be really helpful because I feel like there's a kind of this misconception that I'm picturing somebody like in one of your workshops saying to themselves, well, like I just need to work on getting this I need to work on getting this app perfect before I start thinking about things like marketing and design and things like that. But it sounds
Exactly.
like that's a huge mistake, and that the two efforts should kind of be done together, and they kind of drive one another.
Or even more than that. And a lot of big tech companies do that. Let's say during the ideation process, you think about an app, you want it to do XYZ, you want it, to target ABC kind of people. That's the demographics, that's the psychographics of them. So you can either start actually writing code and create it. It will take time, and then you'll start working on the design, and then you'll try it, and quality control, and all that, and all that. Or you can have that brief. That's the brand. That's the product. That's what the product does. That's why we think people should buy it and use it, and that's why they will download it. That's where we're gonna sell it, and those are the people we're gonna sell it to. Design it, but you design it on Photoshop. You just design it. You don't actually write any piece of code. you design how it will look, you design how every screen will look, and then you take it to the developers and they say what they wanna, what they think about this design, what's viable, what's not. And then you can quasi take it to market. You set the website and you put on those mock-ups. It looks exactly like the product. And you say, click here to download. And you see that 10,000 people went to that website because you created an ad campaign, for instance. Everything looks as if the product really exists, but no one wrote even one piece of code. So the product doesn't really exist. But you saw that 10,000 people went to this website and only 2% wanted to download. You need to tweak something. You need to change something. You change something, you do it again. All of a sudden you see, wow, 67% click on it. Okay, now we need to create a product and take it to market.
That's a really cool strategy to think about. Kind of a way to kind of get feedback as early as possible, as opposed to just kind of trying to figure it all out on your own and just have your own ideas in mind and then just get them out there and see what happens. I think that's really helpful. Another thing that I heard you mention on that same podcast, you talked about the interplay between values, trust, and relationships when building a brand. And I just really liked what you said about it. And so I just was hoping to just hear your thoughts on that again, if you don't mind.
So if we get, let's go back to the first 10 minutes of this podcast, when we talked about the fact that society changed, technology changed over the last 100 years. I mean, technology changed over the last 10 years more than it changed from 1999 to when the first smartphone was launched. Okay, so it's like, whoa, crazy, changes exponentially. But people haven't changed. Trust is super important. Values, like I told you with that research, 67% of the people who has relationship to brands say that that's because they share the same values and relationship. Marketing is about relationship. Marketing and branding is about creating trust. If you don't have trust, okay, maybe they'll buy once. If you don't deliver on your promise, they will not buy, that's for sure. Think about your friends. Okay, let's say you have, 4 good friends. Probably they have pretty much the same values as you have. They have the same perception of the world or family or money or business. And that's why they're your friends. People try to have relationships with something that is aligned with their personality. So you need to create a relationship between your brand and your target audience. Then you need the trust. Then they will buy again and again and again. Retention is super important, more important than acquisition, because retention, the ROI on retention is so much higher because it's easier to sell to someone who already bought than try to convince someone who never bought.
As you're walking through this, I'm just noticing it in my personal life and the decisions that I make and the things that I buy. Um, I find that I'm influenced pretty heavily by podcasters, especially ones that kind of do their own, where it's not just they're not just running down a script necessarily. They're talking about a product that they use or that they advocate. And it's because despite the fact that, I haven't met any of these people who I'm listening to, um, I feel like I know them, and I feel like I get them, and that they do share my values. And I think, well, if they're, buying this product, um, then I can get on board with that too. And so yeah, I mean, it's just really interesting to think about how much. I mean, you mentioned that 67% number, how much that the values does play into it, but you don't even think about it really, or at least I don't. But
That's the whole idea of marketing. Everything is about perception. So we marketers and branders, we need to create some kind of a perception in your mind. And actually, if we look at what's going on right now in the world, um, people expect more from brands. Brands have more responsibility these days. Back in the days, I remember there was a law: don't talk politics. As a, don't talk politics, don't take a stand, let the artists take a stand, and politicians, you are a brand, you don't talk about it. You might say the wrong word and everything will get fucked. Pardon my French.
no, you're fine.
But now it's different because uh, society changed to the fact that we don't buy because we need, because everyone has shirts, everyone has, again, everyone, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking
Sure. Yeah.
very generally. um, you don't buy one shoes. When I was a kid, there was one pair of shoes. You have one pair of shoes, and I don't want you to, like, you're gonna be with this pair until you grow out of them. Who has one pair of shoes these days? What kid has? Because they can. It's easy. So what happened is, and of course, we have less trust with the governor and the government and everything. Those people that were supposed to be like the top, the elite, we don't have trust with them. So we need a connection, and we seek that trust and connection from brands because they're so big. I mean, think about Nike. It's so big. Adidas, so big. They can change the world if they want. And if you think about it, Nike took a stand and started changing. They felt that something is going on in society, and they said, you know what? Those are my values, and they're so important to me, that that's going to be my campaign. And I'm sure that some people will stop buying Nike. And they went with that. And some people not only stopped buying Nike, they start burning their shoes and sweatpants and everything. The stock, by the way, skyrocketed, and everything changed. So
No, I mean that makes complete sense though, because I mean you mentioned as we have a shift towards buying based off of our values, it's logical that if you're buying based off of the perceived values from a company, when something comes up, an issue that could drive social change, the consumer is going to ask the question, okay, company, what are your values? And so um, that's that makes a lot of sense. Talking about the current landscape, one thing that you and I talked about in our earlier conversation was you'd mentioned that it's so easy now to start a business. The internet has empowered consumers, giving them limitless access to the market. I was listening to a podcast a few weeks ago, and I was hearing about the podcaster in this case was kind of complaining about always having to work with kind of the big four tech companies. And the way that he put it is he said, um, if I pay for anything other than Facebook advertising, I might as well just be lighting money on fire. Like, is there any truth to that statement?
yeah, tech is in, at the moment we're in a, I think that this year 2020 is going to be a year that we will all remember as a very pivotal, with big changes. And that's why I'm a huge believer in content, organic content, and creating a tribe based on your story, based on your content, based on your brand, instead of buying ads and Facebook ads and Google words and all of that. Because Google can decide that they don't work with XYZ all of a sudden. A year ago, the cannabis industry woke up in the morning. Usually they don't wake up in the morning, but it was like really early in the morning. I remember the phone call. The phone call was 6:30 a.m. Dude, they took our videos off YouTube. What happened is that YouTube decided to just push back on all cannabis. They shut down some of the biggest channels that they had because they were cannabis channels for growers and people who just, activists or whatever. They decided that that's it. They just shut down. So you can't be just there. And this podcaster is right. You have to create your own stuff. You have to create tons of traffic to your website, regardless of the ads. The thing is that what happened with digital marketing and online marketing made the mass think that it's really easy, and everyone can just I can sell whatever I want. I just drop shipping from China, and I make and all the ads that you see online and on social media. I will teach you how to sell. Hey, in 8 months, I moved from living in the street to making 8 digits. Let me tell you how. All of this thing is bullshit, and that's why if you want to sell, you can go and create those, campaigns, and that's it. Create tons of sale and on to the next thing. That's awesome. That's great. Do whatever you want. But if you're looking for the long term and you're trying to build a brand, you have to do it based on organic, based on content, based on real traffic, based on get people who really sign up to your newsletter and open your newsletter, and not sign up to your newsletter just because you gave them 20% off. If I may, just because I have to, and we touch this, take 20% off. Every website that you go has that pop-up. Take 15% on your first order. Take 20% on your first order. Why do you guys do that? When you're trying to build a brand, and I work with different kind of companies, and if you really want to do that pop-up to get lead, and do it differently. Do it in a way that is on brand. First of all, what happened is when you start with discounts, you create a decision that is based on price. So if they won't get the discount next time, they will not buy. Well, that's not long term, okay? The second thing is that create that pop-up and write a copy on that pop-up, on that lead gen, that is aligned with your brand. Everyone uses the same exact words that are usually just a template that they get from the e-commerce platform. So if everyone's trying to do the same, using the exact same thing, what differentiates you? Stop with the discount already. Give them something else. Give them value. I did a research with one client, I sent to the same amount of people, the same list, the exact same list, one email that promotes a product and one email that promotes value, that has 3 tips to XYZ. The numbers were pretty much the same, but which was higher in open rate and click rate? The value, in about 10%, 46 and 56. So people want value.
That makes sense. And people want and they want novelty too. They don't just want the same thing that they're getting from everybody else. And so yeah, that's no, I'm glad that you kind of went in that direction, because that's something that I hadn't really thought of before. But yeah, like most of the websites that you go to, they pop up offer some sort of discount right out of the gate. And yeah, there's just I have definitely been in situations before where I suddenly felt entitled to that discount, and then when it was no longer available, I just switched. So that makes sense.
This morning I bought I did a Google search for a product. I found different places, checked prices, clicked on one website, started looking at the photos, saw that the price is good. All of a sudden there was a pop-up, get 15%, use this code, just give us our email. And I'm like, I'm going to give you your email, and that's the last time I'm going to buy here. I mean, I know it. So, I'll buy it for $17 instead of 24. And that's it. You're never going to see me again.
Yeah. Doesn't sound like a good long-term strategy. One thing that I saw that you posted this recently is you posted to change your life, you need to change the way you think about life. And so I wanted to talk about mindset. How have you shifted your mindset? And are there any books or podcasts or any things that you would suggest in terms of content for marketing, branding, or personal growth?
Mindset is everything. Everything. And you have to, if you want different results, you need to be different. You need to act different. And it doesn't matter if it's in business or in life. Marketing is very much mindset kind of thing. Successful business is about mindset. Sales is super about mindset. I changed my life, I would say 180 degrees through mindset. From not having, like, my life just got worse and worse and worse and worse, and I got to get more depressed and just thought about life that it's like crap, I'm crap, life is crap, for a very long time. And then I decided I had to. I didn't have anything to eat. And I decided that it's not about having something to eat. It's about, I have to change this whole thing. And I worked on it. And now I make 6 figures. Regarding books and stuff, everything Jim Rohn, listen to, read, watch. Jim Rohn. Special guy.
Okay.
And if you can, just listen to it every morning. Every morning you will see that he's like, wow. Brian Tracy, he's the first guy who started talking about success, how to create success, how to think success, and change the whole way you do sales. I was very bad at sales, couldn't make a sale, didn't have money to eat because of that. And I saw a video of him talking about sales, and I'm coming from marketing, and I was like, I'm a marketing guy, I'm not a sales guy. Sales is not for me. Yeah, but I don't have anything to eat because I can't make any damn sale. So I changed it based on the fact that Brian Tracy opened my mind to the fact that you can do sales differently. You can base it on, as I say, on a brand. based on emotions, based on questions, based on the consumer, and not about yourself and your product. When I did sales, I didn't talk about the product. When you do a good sale, don't talk about the product. Focus on the guy that you or the girl that you're trying to sell. If we're talking about books for branding, I would say this is very important.
What great brands do.
Yeah. Really, really great. You will understand why you don't succeed and just a few succeed.
Thank you so much for sharing those. And also thank you for kind of sharing a little bit about your background and about, because I think that a lot of times they'll see people in your position, and it it just seems like you've always had it figured out and things like that. And I don't know. I personally think it's helpful to hear that that we all struggle in the beginning and it didn't all just come naturally. So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks you for having me.
Yeah, no, for sure. And this has been great. We ran a little bit over. I hope you don't mind.
Oh, it was really, really good.
The last question that I like to ask guests is it's the tagline for the podcast is to do better this year. And this year is kind of a interesting year
Yeah.
to answer the question, how are you going to do better this year? But what does the future look like, and how are you going to do better this year?
So I'll tell you what really happened. When COVID started, was like, okay, shit happens, but we'll get through it. It's an opportunity, and all of a sudden I got a few new projects from people that thought it's an opportunity, and then it just crashed. Like, I lost clients. Clients owe me money. I don't know if I will see that money ever again. And every December, I have a goal, a financial goal for this year. And I had a goal for 2020. It was a pretty high, very nice goal. And I was like, okay, if I'm looking, yeah, I'm going to get it. I like that. It's like you have a goal. And after everything was like, whoa, how the hell am I going to reach this goal? And I know that I'm not the only one that revised his yearly goal for 2020. I know I'm not the only one. Many of those who set goals changed them around March. And I changed it. I dropped it to something that's more attainable. Then a few weeks later, I said, you know what? Come on. You can do better than that. So I got it up a little bit more to something that's going to be a little bit harder. But damn it, I'm going to get that. So, don't drop it. Don't revise down just because the shit hit the fan. The shit will always hit the fan. Yes, this year, whoa. and we're still at it,
Yeah.
And I think that many things are going to happen this year. They are going to be big and life-changing and society-changing.
Sure.
But that means that I need to look down instead of look up. No, so don't look that high, but don't go totally down. So somewhere in the middle.
Oh, I really appreciate your transparency on that, because I mean I had big ideas in December, and it's funny, my wife and a couple of her friends, they were over at our place, and they did it was like a vision board party where this was in December, and they all had, we cut up magazines and put them on, on the vision board, and had your plans for 2020. And I think one of them texted her the other day saying something to the effect of, none of this was on my vision board. And so, a lot of people are making adjustments like that, and it can be very discouraging to make an adjustment like that, right? You can feel like you're giving up, but at the same time, I completely agree. I think that it's important to strike a balance to the point where you are being realistic, but still pushing yourself. And it sounds like that's what you're doing. So yeah, and I really appreciate you being transparent on that. But do you know H. Carter? This has been so much fun. Where can people find out more about you and about the work that you're doing?
It was fun, I gotta say. So they can either find me on dinohcarter.com. They can find my agency on dbranding.la, and of course on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Um, just be real when you try to get connection with me. Don't write some bullshit and then try to sell me. I delete people from LinkedIn all the time.
Oh, well, good. Well, I appreciate it so much. This has been a really fun conversation, and hopefully we'll get a chance to connect again sometime in the future. But until then, thank you again so much, Dino. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.